start in the statements. I believe everyone's got a copy on pages 1 through 5. And this is the letter of transmittal. This is the start of the financial statements. This letter is prepared by management. It gives a general overview of things, the mission of the district, summary information for the year, and prospects for the future. It's a good area to read. If you've not had a chance to read through, get and get some perspective of the district about the year, about the statements. Moving on to pages 8 and 9. This is where we see the reporting. And we see two such certificates this year. One is from the Association of School Business Officials, and the other is from the Government Finance Officers Association. These are for the year ended June 30th, 2024. I wanted to make sure to point these certificates out. This is a really nice achievement for the district. A lot of places will submit their statements for review. It's somewhat rare to have two reviews of the statements and both certificates awarded. So again, I wanted to make sure to mention that. In order to qualify for these awards, the statements go through a very rigorous review process. They need to include some additional information beyond the basic financial statement information. And it's a pretty large undertaking. One of those areas that is required to be added when you're applying for these awards is the letter of transmittal, which was the first thing I mentioned at the beginning of the statements. The statements for this year will also undergo the same review process for next year. Moving on to pages 10 through 13, this is the independent auditor's report. The report states that we have audited the financial statements of the district as of June 30th, 2025. It then reflects our opinion. And in our opinion, the financial statements of the district are fairly audited in all material respects at June 30th, 2025, in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. The report will then talk about responsibilities of management and the auditor. As far as management's responsibilities, management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of the statements in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. This includes the design and implementation of internal controls related to the preparation of the statements and the presentation of the statements that are free from material misstatement. As far as our responsibility as auditors, our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the statements are free from material misstatement. We conducted our audit in accordance with U.S. generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. As such, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the statements. We obtain an understanding of relevant controls to allow us to design appropriate audit procedures, and we evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies and estimates, as well as the overall presentation of the statements. I'll now focus on the management's discussion and analysis, which begins on page 14 of the statements. This section of the statements is not audited, but it's a good summary of the statements that follow it. Provides some background information for you and some important information about the statements that follow. Some of the financial highlights for the year: asset and deferred outflows exceeded liabilities and deferred inflows by $66.7 million at June 30th, 2025. Net position increased about $6.1 million during the year. On the fund level, governmental fund reported a combined fund balance of $49.2 million, approximately. This was up from last year by about $2.6 million. Of that amount, $43.5 million is unrestricted and available in the general fund for the continuing operations of the district. Page 16 of the statements is a summary of the assets, liabilities, and deferred amounts of the district for both the current and prior year. Total assets increased $4.8 million from last year. Current liabilities are up about $500,000 from the prior year level. And long-term liabilities are down about $1.6 million this year. Deferred amounts also changed. Deferred inflows Page 17 shows a table with details about the increase in that position for the year. You can see here that operating grants are down from last year as COVID funding has ceased. However, this is offset by the increases seen in most other revenue categories, and the result is a net increase in revenue from last year. We can also see here that expenses were up from last year. Expenses of the district are primarily instructional expenses, as they have been in prior years. And these expenses account for approximately 64% of the district's total expenses. As I mentioned earlier, net position increased in total about $6.1 million this year. Page 18 begins the discussion of the fund balances of the district. In total, at year end, there were $49.2 million of fund balance. Of that amount, the district had $2.7 million of restricted fund balance and $3.7 million of fund balance assigned for certain purposes. And at year end, the unassigned balance of the general fund was $42.7 million. Page 18 of the statement discusses some differences in the general fund between the actual amounts and what had been budgeted for the year, the general fund being the main operating fund for the district. Excluding pass-through pension amounts that are not budgeted for, actual revenues were about $2.3 million more than budgeted. Again, excluding pass-through pension expenditures, actual expenditures were $500,000 more than anticipated. That excess is related in large part to special education amounts that exceeded anticipated levels for the year. Page 19 discusses the long-term debt of the district. Long-term liabilities were $27.9 million at June 30th, and this is a decrease of $1.6 million from last year. That decrease is a result of a couple things. Payments were made in accordance with set payment schedules, and as mentioned, there was a decrease in the district's pension liabilities during the year. Pages 19 and 20 also have some discussion of what's anticipated for the coming year, and again, some good information for your review about what was anticipated coming into fiscal year 26. The statements themselves follow this section of the financial statements. Again, I spent some time here because it really is a good overview of the statements in total. A couple statements that I will mention, I just wanted to point out a few things briefly. Page 21 shows the assets, liabilities, and deferred amounts at year end for the district as a whole. And as I mentioned earlier, this is where we can see the net position in total of $66.7 million. Page 23 shows the balance sheet for the district's different funds. This really provides a snapshot of where each fund is at year end. There's a column for each of the district's major funds. And as I mentioned earlier, at year end there's $49.2 million in total fund balance at year end. Page 25 shows the revenue and expenditures by fund for the year. We can see here the total increase of fund balance is $2.6 million, as I mentioned. Moving on in the statements, page 29 is where the footnotes begin. This section of the statement provides some additional information and some context to the amounts that are reported throughout the statements. Also gives some background about the district and its policies. A couple footnotes that I'm just going to point out briefly for your review. Page 39 provides some information about the capital assets of the district. Shows the additions, disposals, and related depreciation by type of asset for the year. Again, provides some information for your review about how the capital assets change throughout the year. Page 42 shows a table of the long-term liabilities of the district. At year end, bonds payable and related premiums are $16.4 million. The district has $3.1 million of pension liabilities and $8.4 million of other post-employment liabilities. Page 44 provides a table of fund balances at year end. And again, as I mentioned earlier, at year end there's $49.2 million in total of fund balance. Of that amount, $2.7 million is restricted for certain purposes, as can be seen here. $3.7 million is assigned for certain purposes, largest being transportation, and $42.7 million after these notes are really more detailed information about information already presented. There are comparisons for each fund about how the current year activity compares to the prior year and budget. And again, some good additional information for you to review. Moving towards the back of the statements on pages 108 to 127. This is the statistical section. This is another section that is required if the district submits its statements for review for the certificate. Otherwise, it's not required. But again, it really gives some good 10-year trend information that's really beneficial for review. And in addition to that trend information, it provides some other information about the district as far as revenues, demographics, and other operating information. So again, it's a good area to spend some time in if you have any chance yet. The last section of the statements, pages 128 through 137, is the single audit. This section is required if the district expends a certain level of federal, how the audit progresses and went. Before I get into that, are there any questions about the statements?
You might be not the right person to ask, but these breakdowns of EAV, page 114. Farm property, one of them is categories is farm property. What makes a farm?
That's just from the county, they break it out for us that way.
So somewhere in the school district, there's a farm, according to the county.
Yeah,
Yes.
as classified by the assessor, yeah.
And it's gone down in value in the last 10 years, so I'm thinking it's probably
Or sold.
more farm